Every story leaves clues, let's see where they lead. What if the happiest, most hopeful version of your life was actually the lie you told yourself the night before you couldn't live with the truth anymore? Mulholland Drive spends most of its runtime as a shimmering, romantic Hollywood mystery, and then, in its final 20 minutes, quietly reveals that everything you loved about it was a coping mechanism, built by a mind trying to survive its own guilt for just a little while longer. The film opens with a woman surviving a car crash on Mulholland Drive in Los Angeles, stumbling away with amnesia and taking shelter in an apartment belonging to Aunt Ruth, currently empty except for a visiting niece, Betty Elms, Naomi Watts, a bright, eager aspiring actress newly arrived in Hollywood. The amnesiac woman, who takes the name Rita, Laura Harring, after spotting a poster for the actress Rita Hayworth, has no memory of who she is or why a car accident nearly killed her, only a strange sense of dread and a purse containing a large amount of cash and a mysterious blue key. Betty and Rita form a fast bond, and Betty takes it upon herself to help Rita uncover her identity, leading them through a series of surreal detours, a sinister meeting at Winky's Diner where a man describes a recurring nightmare about a monstrous figure behind the restaurant, only to encounter that exact figure when he investigates, a parallel storyline following ambitious young director Adam Kesher, Justin Theroux, whose film project is being hijacked by mysterious, menacing figures. Insisting he cast a specific actress, Camilla Rhodes, in his lead role, regardless of his own creative wishes, and an eerie, wordless meeting with a cowboy who delivers a cryptic warning to Adam about seeing him one more time if things don't go a certain way. Betty herself auditions dazzlingly for a role, impressing everyone in the room, and briefly seems poised for the Hollywood success story she came to Los Angeles chasing. Betty and Rita's investigation, along with their growing romantic relationship, builds toward a nightclub called Club Silencio, where a performer explains that everything in the show is a recorded illusion. No hey banda, there is no band, before a singer collapses mid-performance while her voice continues playing, revealing the entire act to be pre-recorded. Immediately after, Rita discovers a mysterious blue box in her purse that matches the blue key from earlier. When the two open it back at the apartment, Betty vanishes, and the entire film's reality fractures. The final act reveals a different configuration of the same actors, Diane Selwyn, also Naomi Watts, a struggling, embittered actress, and Camilla Rhodes, also Laura Harring, her ex-lover and a far more successful actress who has moved on, now engaged to director Adam Kesher. We learn, through fragments, that Diane hired a hitman to kill Camilla out of jealousy and heartbreak after Camilla ended their relationship and began flaunting her new engagement in front of Diane at a party. Confirmation of the murder arrives via the same blue key seen earlier, now understood as the hitman's signal that the job is done. Overwhelmed by guilt and grief, Diane hallucinates the two elderly people who'd earlier appeared warmly welcoming her to Los Angeles, now reappearing as tiny, monstrous, cackling figures chasing her through her apartment. In the film's final moments, Diane shoots herself. The blue box and the blue key. The film's most direct symbolic device, the box and key function as literal narrative hinges. Opening the box collapses the dream reality of Betty and Rita and delivers the audience into the more painful truth underneath. The key alone reappears in the real timeline as confirmation that Diane's hired hit on Camilla has been carried out, meaning the same object functions in the dream as a mystery to be solved and in reality as proof of an act of violence Diane can't take back. No hey banda, at Club Silencio. The nightclub performer's insistence that the entire show is a recording, that there is no live band despite what the audience sees and hears, functions as the film's clearest, most explicit statement of its own mechanics. Everything in the preceding Betty and Rita narrative has been an illusion, a performance Diane's mind staged for her own comfort, and the film is warning the audience directly, moments before it collapses that illusion completely. Names and identity swaps. Characters throughout the film appear under different names and relationships in the dream versus the real timeline, Rita/Camilla, Betty/Diane, even supporting characters shifting roles and allegiances, mapping directly onto how dreams distort and rearrange real people and relationships into versions the dreamer can more easily process. The dream doesn't invent new people so much as it recasts the real ones into roles that let Diane experience love, competence, and rescue rather than rejection, failure, and guilt. The cowboy. A recurring, enigmatic figure who appears to deliver cryptic warnings to Adam Kesher in the dream sequence and reappears briefly near the film's climax. The cowboy functions as an ambiguous authority figure straddling both realities, someone who seems to know more about the true order of events than any other character, hinting at forces, whether literal Hollywood power players or something more metaphysical, shaping outcomes that the dreaming mind can't fully control or understand. The elderly couple. Introduced warmly on Diane's flight into Los Angeles, wishing her well and appearing supportive, the same two elderly figures return in the film's final scene as tiny, grotesque, cackling monsters chasing Diane to her death. Their transformation across the film's two halves is one of its most direct pieces of dream logic. Figures who represented hope and welcome in Diane's fantasy return, once the fantasy collapses, as manifestations of the shame and self-loathing that fantasy was built to suppress. Now let's examine the evidence piece by piece, connect the clues, and uncover the hidden meaning that ties the whole story together. The Winky's Diner nightmare scene. Early in the film, a man describes a recurring dream to his companion about a terrifying figure lurking behind the diner, and when they investigate together, the figure is exactly where and what he described. This scene, seemingly a standalone detour from the main plot, is actually the film's clearest early tutorial in how its own dream logic operates. Fears and anxieties in this story don't stay abstract, they manifest directly and literally, confirming that the film's reality is being shaped by psychological terror rather than conventional plot causality. It primes attentive viewers to read everything that follows, including Betty and Rita's entire adventure, as operating under the same rules. Club Silencio. The nightclub sequence, where a magician-like host insists repeatedly that the performance is entirely recorded and illusory before a singer collapses while her voice continues, unaltered, is the film's structural turning point and its most direct address to the audience. It matters because it's Lynch essentially breaking the fourth wall within the dream itself, warning both Betty/Diane and the viewer that everything beautiful and moving in what they've just experienced was a construction, a performance without a genuine live source behind it, right before the blue box appears and the entire fantasy dissolves into the far harsher reality it was built to disguise. The widely accepted reading of Mulholland Drive, supported by Lynch's own carefully constructed clues, and reinforced by the 10 clues he distributed in the film's promotional materials, is that the majority of the film, the Betty and Rita mystery, the sparkling Hollywood romance, Betty's triumphant audition, Adam Kesher's creative battle, is an extended dream being had by Diane Selwyn, a failed, heartbroken actress, in the hours or moments before her suicide. The dream reworks the painful facts of Diane's actual life into a version she can survive emotionally. In reality, Camilla Rhodes is a more successful actress who ended their relationship and moved on to marry Adam Kesher, humiliating Diane in the process. In the dream, that same woman becomes helpless, amnesiac Rita, dependent entirely on Diane's dream self, Betty, for rescue, identity, and love, inverting the actual power dynamic between them into something Diane's waking mind couldn't achieve. The dream also transforms Diane's failed acting career into triumph. Dream Betty dazzles in her audition, is warmly welcomed to Hollywood, and seems destined for the success Diane never actually achieved. Even Adam Kesher, the director Camilla left Diane for in real life, is recast in the dream as a beleaguered victim of shadowy Hollywood forces, stripped of any direct romantic threat to Betty and Rita's relationship. The film's final act peels back this fantasy and reveals the underlying truth. Diane, devastated and enraged after witnessing Camilla's engagement party and ongoing relationship with Adam, hires a hitman to kill her. The blue key, introduced mysteriously in the dream, is confirmed in reality as the coded signal that the murder has been completed. Overwhelmed by guilt, grief, and the psychological collapse of the fantasy she'd been sustaining, Diane is besieged by hallucinations of the same elderly couple who'd once seemed kind, now monstrous and pursuing her, until she shoots herself in her apartment. For Diane, the ending is unambiguously tragic. A woman who arrived in Hollywood with genuine hope and talent, undone by rejection, professional failure, and jealousy, ultimately destroys the person she loved and then herself, having spent her final hours retreating into a dream that let her briefly experience being the hero of a story she never actually got to live. For Camilla, understood through the lens of Diane's guilt and grief, the real ending is her murder at Diane's instruction, an act the dream sequence obsessively avoids depicting directly, instead reworking Camilla into helpless, grateful Rita, as if Diane's unconscious mind is trying to undo, or at least emotionally soften, what she knows she's set in motion. For Adam Kesher, the film offers no redemption arc or resolution in the real timeline beyond his implied marriage to Camilla. In Diane's dream, he's recast as a sympathetic, thwarted figure rather than the man who took the woman she loved, which says more about how Diane needed to process her jealousy than about who Adam actually is. At its core, Mulholland Drive is a devastating critique of the Hollywood dream factory and what it costs the people who come chasing it. Diane's story, bright-eyed hope curdling into failure, jealousy, and violence, mirrors countless real stories of actors who arrive in Los Angeles believing in their own inevitable stardom, only to watch someone else, sometimes someone they love, get the career and life they wanted instead. The film's dream structure lets it dramatize both the seductive fantasy of that dream, Betty's instant success, her love story, her competence, and the brutal reality underneath it, Diane's failure, humiliation, and eventual crime, within a single narrative. The film is also deeply interested in how the mind processes unbearable guilt, using its dream logic to show a person literally reconstructing reality into a version she can live inside, if only temporarily. Diane doesn't simply feel bad about what she's done, her mind manufactures an entire alternate world, complete with a version of herself who is capable, desired, and heroic rather than desperate, humiliated, and murderous. The film suggests that this kind of psychological self-protection has limits. The dream can't be sustained indefinitely, and its collapse, at Club Silencio, then the blue box, arrives with the force of something the dreamer always knew, on some level, was coming. There's also a sustained interrogation here of power, particularly around who gets to make creative and romantic choices versus who has choices made for them. Adam Kesher's dream storyline, in which shadowy figures strong-arm him into casting an actress against his will, mirrors real anxieties about creative control and coercion within the film industry, while Diane's own arc, losing Camilla to someone with more power and success, reflects a broader theme about how desire, ambition, and industry hierarchy in Hollywood specifically corrode intimate relationships. Finally, the film argues, through its very structure, that identity itself is far less fixed and stable than we assume. Characters shift names, relationships, and even fundamental personality traits between the film's two halves, suggesting that who we are is deeply contingent on the story we're currently telling ourselves, and that under enough psychological pressure, a person's sense of self can fracture and reconstruct itself entirely, if only for the length of a dream. The case is closed. Or is it? If you enjoy uncovering hidden meanings, subscribe for the next case.